Well, welcome everybody to the Jacob Edwards Library, and thank you for joining us to celebrate National Poetry Month. So we have 8 poets here this evening that are all local to the area, and they were generous enough to come and read some of their poetry for us. I'm hoping I don't pronounce anyone's name wrong, but I apologize in advance if I do. So we have Eve Rivka, Dan Lewis, Jennifer Freed, Joyce Heon, Susan Roney O'Brien, Patty Youngblood, Carolyn Howe, and Susan Elizabeth Sweeney here to read for us tonight. So I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
And do you want to introduce people one at a time? Because otherwise we won't know in what order to go up.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Do you want to just go by the
We'll all
order?
just rush up there and start inviting each other.
Go whatever order you
Okay,
have.
I'll just go by the order that's here. All right. So first we have Jennifer Freed, whose work appears in, is forthcoming in various journals, including the Atlanta Review, the Christian Science Monitor, Poetry East, the Worcester Review,
You don't
and
have to
her
be
chapbook.
long.
I'm just going to do the first line. Her chapbook, These Hands Still Holding. So welcome to Jennifer Freed. Oh, no, that's okay.
I will say that I didn't know I was going first, and I just answered this reporter. She said, "What are you going to read tonight?" I said I didn't know. I sometimes like to be spontaneous based on what my fellow poets are reading. But I don't know what they're reading, so
Now you have to set the tone.
now I have to set the tone. So I think that what I'll do, because she asked me about one of my poems, is I'll read the poem. I have one poem in this book, just one, and it's based on my experiences teaching English to refugees who have been resettled in the Worcester area. Lessons. If you were that woman sitting every Friday in the public library, 1 week working through the who and how and why of simple questions whispering from your tutor's lips, the next week learning price and pay and sale and save and how much does it cost? If you were that woman, then you too would ask for repetition of bag and back and bank, of leave and leaf and left and live. And you would struggle to produce the English sounds that held the meanings you still held inside your head, the dappled murmuring of leaves outside your childhood home, the trees full of sweet yellow fruit you could not name in this new life, the lives you left so you could live. And as you moved your lips in all the unfamiliar ways to make the sounds your tutor made, she would nod and you would smile, but you would never write, for you would not yet know how to form or read those fast, firm letters you watched pouring from her hand. And so you'd have no way to store what you had learned, except in memory and hope, alongside memories of why you've never needed written words in your native world, where your mother had taught you all the skills of planting and harvesting and weaving and singing that you would ever need for living in a lush, good place. And alongside memories of gunfire echoing beyond the trees, of rebels begging for or stealing food, of soldiers from some distant city standing in your village, barking about loyalty and able-bodied men. And then the memories of jungle paths for 5 long nights, of sharing food and whispered hope with others who had dared to flee. And the memories of the daughter and the son, both born and grown high as your eye in the refugee camp on the border. The English words would nestle in amidst all this, get lost, be found again, and you would have to try to pull them out, but leave the rest behind. Try to let the new sounds tell you not only the hard-edged names and places of this brick and concrete life, but also how to live in it, how to take a city bus, how to pay for light. And you would sit again in a mauve chair at a round table in the library amidst the shelves and worlds of words, struggling with your who and how and why. And you would not allow yourself to figure how much it had cost or how much you still had to pay. You would just smile and thank your tutor and come back next Friday. So thank you. I know it's hard sometimes to listen to a very long poem. It was this long. So I'm going to read some shorter things now. I will read something based on my children, my daughters, sort of. So this is very short. This is called Sitting. Across the lawn, beyond my gaze, my daughters' voices rise and falling, lilt and laughing, while the robin in the dogwood breaks a tiny tip of branch and goes and comes and breaks again, again. His swoop so close, even the thrumming of his wings is in the breath that I exhale. And I think we're just doing 5 minutes each. Is that what we all agreed on? 5 minutes? Okay. So I'll read one more. And again, it's about, I can read 2 more. Okay, I'll read, well, the first of the 2 more that I will read is again about my children. It seems that one thing that brought me back to writing poetry from writing longer things that were maybe nonfiction was that when I had children, I had only short spurts of time. So I would jot things down, and then in other short spurts, I would do a little bit of editing and a little more editing. And so I found that when I was putting together my chapbook, I kept having children running in and out of my poems, if not being the subject of my poems. So this one is based on a painting that some of you probably know by René Magritte, and it's the picture of the pipe. And it's actually called The Travesty of Images, but the words underneath say, with the picture of the pipe, say, "This is not a pipe." So that's the title of my poem, and the first line is responding to that title. This is not a pipe. But I remember how my daughters, each in turn, once sat on my knee while I named for them, page after page, all that was not what I said it was. The red balloon, the great green room, the house, the mouse, the star, the night, and how my daughters grew and learned to speak, and still sat on my knees, pressing crayons to my hands, directing me to draw in bright untruths what was not a dog, a girl, a sun, a yard, a rainbow arching over all, a great red heart. How the pictures, theirs and mine, went up on the walls, and how it felt to hold each child nightly nestled on my lap, the weight and warmth of tender bodies curving into mine. How sometimes we grew still and listened, and sometimes they said, "I can feel your heart." And they did, and it was, and we all knew that it was true. I guess maybe I should have said, well, never mind, I won't say it. I didn't say it, so I won't say it. So I will read one more. This one again is based on a work of art. This one is called Mother and Child, and there's a poem by Mary Cassatt called Mother and Child, and there's a painting by Mary Cassatt called Mother and Child. And in that painting, there's a picture of a mother near a naked child who perhaps just came out of the bath, all rosy and peachy and round and protuberant belly. So this is for my now 14-year-old who is taller than me, but wasn't when I wrote this. Mother and Child. Dear little one, so angry with me for the affront of requiring clean hands. Go back, I say. Go back again. You see, soap does make a difference, and water too. And you, almost in tears, rebellion in your stomping feet, yet wanting me to calm the very anger I have caused. And I do. I wrap you in my arms and hold the furious beating force of you, your firm body almost too big for my lap. Your ear on my heart, my lips on your hair. I breathe the earthy green air of your morning play. I want to keep you here. I want to paint the perfect curves of shoulder, cheek, and belly, tender and smooth as a ripe summer peach, as though I could save this piece of you to touch long after you have flown, fast and strong, beyond my reach. Should I introduce?
Oh, okay. I can do it. So next we have Joyce Heon.
What she didn't say was that I'm from Lunenburg. And I'm the iconoclast in the group. It's a big word for saying I rebel a little bit. This time I decided to read a poem that came across my desk this morning. I haven't seen it for many years, and it seemed so appropriate for today because it's a kind of anniversary. We had just got through with Easter. It's the week after Easter, and this poem takes place in that same week in the year 2001. Easter that year came on the 15th of April, and it came after a lingering winter, just as this year lingered. And so I thought it would be appropriate to read it, especially since it's 16 years now. And that was the exact difference in ages between my sister and me. She was 16 years older than I was. And so she was having a tough time. She had broken her pelvis and she needed help at night getting out of bed, and I was spending my nights with her instead of coming to a poetry reading. But you get to hear about that now. The name of the poem is Dust Cloud, and it's even longer. 2 days into eating the Easter ham, Muriel fails. The pain of a bruised hip, broken pelvis forces her to admit her sister into her household. Even so, she talks only of the day she will be independent of need. Her Pekingese spins itself to sleep, snores, reverberate the channels of her abbreviated snout. But Muriel sleeps, hard in her hearing. The cat wheezes out her 20th year, one rheumy-eyed, clouded, half-blind. The good one follows her, cat with long bones stalking, cat with heartbeat, a captured hummingbird feathering her fur. Cat with sore voice calls out, "One more spring." Purrs thrum her slabby ribs, an engine amiss, a catch in life like the claws that have forgotten how to retract. Hook on their chair throws when she rises from sleep. Like pieces of housekeeping surrendered to necessity, loss defines each minute. Even the chimes to the clock ring slow, a 78 doing 40 RPMs, a time-warped sound. Still the hours tick, night moves on, they sleep, and my 60 years of youth watches into the next day. Spring proves a difficult release from the impossible cold, the long solitude. At dawn, the wind shifts to the north. From her sleeping, she calls to her dead husband, calls herself awake, rises into the harness of her walker, shuffles like that wintered over oak leaf, wind-driven across the driveway, shuffles past the rising sun. Today, Sam's come to bury the baby goat that waited for the frost to leave hold of the earth. In the shade of the pines, puddles of snow remain, while the grass resuscitates through the thatched lawn where the sun wakens sleeping worms. Sam growls at this bundle of work that threatens to unman him. He swears at life that demands burying again and again, all Muriel's salvations brought to his backhoe. This baby goat that lived long enough to become an argument over his name, living long enough to become an armload of love, now drops Muriel's jaw in a gasp of grief, the air of her love released, a soft wail for life lost before begun. And here I am, she says, shuffling pain from room to room, zest for living wrung out of me like morning glories come to evening. 58 years ago today I started work in Fitchburg. Now I can't think of anything I accomplished. Another day, and again the sun rises in its broiling white. This, the day the drift of dinosaurs and mummies driven from the Gobi by a banshee dust storm whitens the sky over New England. She pulls the shade against the bright morning sun, the heat. Her eyes have fallen small into her head, withdrawn from another day of pain. The curve of her back stiffens against diminishing. The cat felines across the hall to the kitchen, folds its length into a leap to the counter where she will feed it, turns circles of impatience. The clock moans into another morning. For all the segments it has named, it still has no measure for eternity. Will wear itself and batteries out long before decades, never mind centuries. Muriel, Don't fret about your 60 years of work, unremarkable. Today, both Khans and unnamed women who milked goats are risen to the skies, mingle with millennia of loss. I believe they marvel at the crocuses and Siberian squill scattered throughout the neighbor's lawn. It's kind of depressing. And so I'm going to read one poem from my Hills Alive collection of sound poems. It's lighter. This is a poem about my granddaughter when she was young enough to still enjoy getting dressed up in mummy's heels and a rabbit fur jacket. It's called Merrily Ferrily. These poems in this book are based on sound. They're chosen to be in the book just on sound. Some of them have zero meaning except for the sound that they produce. But most of them do have some meaning. And when you come over there, you'll find that there's a CD of me reading all of the poems. So if you would rather have the oral version, just like this reading, you could get that. It's called Merrily Ferrily. Imperturbably slender in a fat coat, slip, slop, slap heels, steep like a mountain goat. Words all a laughy, daffy scrolled and shrill, light speed, blue eyes, heading for a spill. Catch latcher home before she trolley hops away. Single jingle Mary doesn't ever wiggle stay. Thank you.
Next. You do.
The next alphabet.
Is he right? I don't think so, but I'll go.
The next person will be Carolyn Howe. Well, Heon Howe? Isn't that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
It comes like one of those poems, Young Hal.
Yeah, that's right.
So I wrote this 2 to 3 weeks ago on a very, very windy day. Thinking of the images of spring coming, and kind of 4 verses with one of my first images of spring, and then I go on to the lake that I live on, plants growing, and a sense of spring reflecting dying and rebirth, and hope, so, and reading in the summer. So, into the light. Instead of snow-packed paws, she tracks mud into the house, an underbelly of dirt and grime that sparkles in the morning sun. Soon we can use the outside hose again. The west wind brings warm air now. When it blows fierce across the water, whitecaps leap and dance, turning our cove into a galaxy of midday stars. On calm days, swans carve V's in their wake. Crocuses sprout despite April's storm. Painted turtles find sun on the fallen winter log. Forsythia is tentative but hopeful, and even the rainbow welcomes blue sky. Back in autumn, we thought you would join the falling leaves. We thought you would become one with the snowman. But here you are. The blue heron stands beyond the shore, waiting to carry your wind on its wings. And smoke from my marshmallow fire will rise with ancestors' breath. I wrote this last May at, in Ogunquit. I was there with my brother, and somehow something wasn't feeling just right. And he was talking an awful lot, so I decided to go take a bath, and I told him I was doing a meditation, so he'd leave me alone. Anyway, that's kind of not part of the poem, but that's the background. So I did go into a meditation, and I call this bathwater meditation. I try to remember, I'll start over. I try to imagine I'm in my mother's womb, warm water protecting me. I bid her come, help me understand why my wiser self seems so distant from the part of me where cobwebs blur my vision. An invisible weight digs a crater into my chest, forming a swamp that spawns beehives. I lie submerged, breathing shallow, but still above water where air and sunshine live. I hold on to me as she would have. Stroke my face, my arms, hug harder. I'll be with you, I say, even if you lose control, even if you're lost, or your light becomes dull. I'll surround you with love as she always did, no matter what. But what if I forget you, my other side says? What if I deny you? Then take a bath, I reply. Warm water will remind you to bid me come, and I'll be here no matter what. I wrote this thinking about a man I met years ago when I was visiting basically a prison mental health ward. And so this is called Just Time. And I don't usually use any format for my poems, but this time I used a structure. So the first line is 6 syllables, the second one is 4, the third one is 9, and the end of the 9th rhymes each verse, and then 2 words. Just time. There are no rivers here, no barren trees, no dogs chasing squirrels in the forest. Just time. I'm a church-going man, tried to be good, never even cheated on a test. Safe time. I lost my job, went broke. Wife needed meds. Desperate, I set out on a quest. One time. Just once I broke the law. It was Sunday. On that sacred day, I faced arrest. God's time. Now it's bars and barbed wire, lines single file. Each day, I just tried to do my best. Lost time. Crazy people are here, real criminals. I tell myself I'm not like all the rest. Hard time. I miss her apple pie. I miss her scent. The reek of urinals fill my nest. Night time. Pastor came on Sunday. Wife's improving. When she can visit, I will be blessed. Sometime. Blacktop cracks reveal grass. Sunshine brings growth. Forgiving self, I now serve honest, just time. And one more. It's at that.
It's short.
Fairly short, yeah. The burden basket. And I wrote this to my father. He heard my despair and crossed over to meet me there in my dream. He sat on my bed like he used to do, touching my tears and my fears. In his hands appeared the most beautiful basket I have ever seen. "Your burden basket," was all he said. Then he kissed my cheek and was gone. When I awoke at dawn, there was the beautiful basket by my side, holding my burdens. One by one, I cupped them in my palm, and they floated away, translucent colors of rainbow.
Dan Lewis.
We are a workshop group, in case you don't realize it. Eve Rifka, who you will hear later, was one of the founders. We have been meeting for, we're not sure how many, more than 15 years. And I have to say, all of you have certainly made me a better poet. One of the things they warned me early on, you know, somebody told me, you're going to get involved with a workshop, you're going to keep reading poems to each other, you're all going to sound alike. I think we'll prove to you that that's not true. I'm going to read a selection from the most recent book, Intimations of the Focal Plane. I'm going to read it in large print, though. I can't read it out of the book anymore. Suppose we resolve to do the only thing that makes sense. Let the body do what it will, careening wildly toward disaster. Teach the mind to go along for the ride, wherever it goes, filching from each day some small pairing of joy. Moonshot, incandescent, semaphore, diligent dichotomy, expectations excited by every wave of the troposphere, talked himself into a corner and had to escape by vaulting over the bounds of reason. Cross-purpose allegory or simple bold-faced lie, same price for all prevarications, everything overstated, nothing understood. We have not seen the cow for days. I think I know what it will be like not being here. In fact, a lot like not being in Des Moines, Iowa. In Des Moines, Iowa, there are surely streets lined with storefronts and offices where right now, presumably, people are walking singly and in pairs and groups, talking or not, striding purposely to a destination or sauntering without direction. In Des Moines, Iowa, there are most likely lovers waking up in each other's arms, overjoyed to be alive. Happy, in fact, to be waking up in Des Moines, Iowa. And there are also, without doubt, old men, sorrowful and lost, who are shambling without hope through another day. And somewhere in Des Moines, Iowa, there may be, statistically likely, someone I once met, however briefly, someone whose path crossed mine somewhere. And there must be restaurants, theaters, museums, and parks to explore. All these people, all this life, imagine. And yet, for days and days and days, I have given no thought at all to Des Moines, Iowa. Yes, like that. Cold snap. Beyond the fence line, ice holds words in check. Nothing breaks this sky. Coins freeze on the tongue. Birds have long since abandoned the rafters. If there was a way into the cave, it is lost now. Someone has hung a pair of gloves on a clothesline. Their gestures pretend a way out of the story. But the iron bell remains silent, its clapper frozen to the rim of the known world. Journey to the north. If this is what we thought all along, then what color did we imagine for our dreams? You don't have to answer. I just like these convoluted conjectures. Name for this day already lost in the shuffle. You might wonder how long we can go on like this. For years, I've been leaving small bits of my brain like breadcrumbs to mark the way back. Kitchen, circa 1950. Blue and yellow because always. Round eye of the oven watching. How we made the rain sing. Tuesdays home for lunch. Or those nights when the record player came back and everyone in the world was home just for now. That, by the way, came out of an exercise that was suggested by Susan Roney O'Brien. And the last poem I will read is actually the last poem in the book, also St. Elizabeth's Day. Well and good, but I can't seem to penetrate the fog this morning. My mouth is full of dust. No one is playing the trumpet. You understand the importance of seeing the world as it is, but my desk is cluttered with stones dumped from other people's pockets. Listen, I'm as much in love with living as the next guy. Why do I have this need to paint my face red and walk out into the woods raving? Yesterday, we blew the leaves from the yard. Last night, it rained and stripped more from the oaks. If there are only a few days left, I want them all to shine. Bring me my glockenspiel. Let's make some noise.
Isn't it Susan's?
Eve Rivka.
Oh, you're going by the R, not the O. Okay, right.
Okay, I'm going to read my first poem from my first book, Outcast, the Pennapeace Island Leper Hospital, 1905 to 1921, which was off the coast of Cape Cod, a very tiny island, a mere half mile by a quarter mile in size, that Massachusetts decreed was going to be a leper colony. So all the people in the book were real people that were there, and they came from around the world, but were living and working in Massachusetts at the time they were diagnosed. So I'm going to read one poem from that about Julia E. Lowe, who was 60 at the time she was diagnosed, a widow from Key West, Florida. She arrived at the colony July 21st, 1917, and she died December 20th, 1920. Julia embroiders. My needles flew like Arctic terns diving below the surface of cloth and up again. Garden spilled across pillow slips and tablecloths. I made my living in thread. Now I watch the crow climb claw by claw up my arm, my friend. You feather-stitched trails in clouds, I sit empty, hands turned to clubs hidden in winding cloth, barren of design. Oh Lord, Was it my pride bringing beauty to the everyday of of our lives you punished? I dream colored floss forming petals in lace. I dream my fingers back again. And one for my second book, Dear Suzanne, which is the life of Suzanne Valadon, who was a French impressionist and mother of Maurice Trilla. She lived from 1865 to 1938. And they're persona poems in her voice. Sudden wealth. The Andre referred to in here is her second husband, who was also an artist. Appearance, Andre wanted, a good appearance. Drags me to a shop in Lyon. Shop girls, a bevy of locks, flutter about pulling furs from racks, draping me in heavy. I reach beyond their hands to tight curled fleece, enveloped in astrakhan. The owner, the clerks, and Andre all set up a howl. Too big, too big. A chorus of disharmonious cries. Lamb around wolf. I snarl. Stubborn blindness rules. On the escalator, descending, fleece catches beneath shoe. I grab rail, wobble, and right, but wrong. I disgust myself. In the car, throw fur to floor. Coat becomes bed for my beloved dogs, Lacry and Lamis. I'm going to read one poem from my new book that will be coming out in June called Scar Tissue. And it's about the rather torturous life of my aunt Corinne, although she's called Cora in the book. And she spent the first 7 years of her life in foster care, which was really the happiest time in her life. Was living in foster. She had a great home, and she was really happy. And then things went downhill from there. And she died just 2.5 years ago at 89. Stepmother. In the foster home, Cora, the Jew outsider in the Catholic home, confession, communion, catechism, stuff the others do. Cora, the different one. Something about the man called father. One day he comes with another woman, corset held straight and hard. Cora feels mean spirits fly from woman's eyes, feels hate. New word washes Cora in doom. She whispers, I don't like her. Woman in loud voice of what is to come, I don't like you either. Now bad dreams happen when eyes open. And I'm going to read just one more poem, which is a standalone poem, which I usually write in series, and like everything becomes together into one history something, but this isn't. This is not about denial. Though the wind feathers my arms in longing, this is not about desire or lack thereof, to waltz into the night unattended. Not about love or less, good or barely, or dreams broken by early wakening. And not about cold wind teasing blues, or rasping branches burdened with mockingbirds, crows, cedar waxwings, or seedlings gently placed, nodding over the deep darkness, anchoring roots to terra firma. This is about how the sun veils exposed skin in heavy sweetness. My spring, a time for sleep, curled into ever smaller knots, in inverse nail falling in stone. Thank you. And then, Suzeroni O'Brien. I have a Labrador Retriever. This is called retriever training. A long shot from the ball launcher, and yes, he runs for the orange ball, past the boulder, past the apple tree, and into the field where he mulls it. Sits. You squat, lift your voice an octave, feign excitement, clap palms against pant legs, holler, "Come here, come on, bring it here!" And his ears flop as those long brown legs gather speed, and he runs back in his flapping dog body. "Drop, drop," you shout, and he does. Repeat, replay 23 times. You call, bend to him, and when the ball drops at your feet, toss it out again. You finally got it. You're trained. Okay, that's not in any book. And my whole life is not in any book. I used to teach middle school, and this is from Ladies of the Last World. It's called The Note. On fall field day, I tracked the janitor in, flipping light switches to my room, unlocked the door, piled flags and markers onto my desk, then checked the drawer reserved for student privacy, poems too raw for class discussion, confessions of bad deeds, locker keys, locks, cigarettes, and saw an envelope. I ripped it open. Inside, a scrap of yellow paper, pencil scrawls, unsigned. "I won't be back. You know my father. I'm going to kill myself." Is this real? I sit down hard. Which student makes his O's so slanted, crosses T's so low? I pull paper after paper from my bag, tear through corrected tests. Joe Cochran, the dark-eyed quiet boy who sits in the back. I know his father. I run to the office, find the number, dial the home. The receiver clicks, someone lifts the phone, then drops it back onto the cradle. I want to send police to Joey's home. I want to go and make sure he's alive. The principal's car pulls up. I catch him outside, thrust the note into his hands. He dials the cops direct, and when they come, I hand the envelope over. The chief nods, says he dispatched a car when we called, and they found the boy hanging, rope tied around the fan extender in the family room. They revived him in the ambulance. "He's alive then?" I asked. "Alive," he said. "In ICU, but alive." At home, I sit beside the window overlooking the backyard. When it's time, I place silverware next to the plates, serve chicken, rice, and carrots, listen to the children's stories. My husband asks if I need to talk. "When I come in," I say, then leash the dog, walk outside. It is November. Soon snow will cover everything. This book is set up so that there are poems about Adam and Eve at the beginning of each section. So this one is called No Seasons in Eden. And basically it's the reason why Adam and Eve wanted out. No seasons in Eden. Each tree, each vine grew, blossomed, and bore in divine abundance, a perpetual burgeoning and bounty, seed, flower, and fruit, all times at once, never want, cold, and drought. But it was no time, really, just munificence, a continual feast without the saving of seeds, all and everything all the time, and nothing lost. We flowered as well, our perfect bodies fallow. We did not even wonder why our forms fit into each other until we were freed with one bite of that apple. That taking of what had been forbidden into my mouth, the curve against curious tongue, the closing of lips over fruit, the bite into white flesh. Innocent enough, the urge to taste. We were human after all, and the fall could not have been unscripted by the God who knew even the number of pores on our bodies. Yes, we had touched and seen and smelled blossoms in Eden, heard frogs each night, but like river water, we had flowed within the garden, bending grasses back, unaware, no more. Now we clung to each other,
knowing what flesh was, understanding what we had not known, questioning, our eyes open, our ears full of song. So we were banished. God save the serpent. I did a poem about dogs, so this one is called Perhaps Cats, and this is my last one. Perhaps cats. Late night, spring after clocks change, feral cats sing between stone fences. The unexpurgated mating howls are music to feline ears, but not to ours. We pulled into the driveway, stepped from Mozart's perfect score into the sore symphony of need. At the kitchen door, a black one needs the mat, rolls on knotted roping by the stair. You explode from your seat, slam the car door, swear and fly. The animal doesn't care for all your shouted words and turns his tail. And there, as you say, you are. A man who mistook mammalian identity and had to pay. Engulfed in a reek of insidious scent. When I laugh, you dash my way, then take me in your arms, hold me there, infusing skunk spray into my coat, my hair. Sharing is caring. Thank you.
That's me. So I'm going to read three poems. I think the middle one will be a little longer than the others. And I'm going to tell a little story, I hope, about my development as a poet. And part of the story of my development as a poet is that I wrote poetry for many years. And then one of the people I love most in the world committed suicide. My sister DJ killed herself in 1996 at age 49. And I just stopped writing altogether for 7 or 8 years because I couldn't write about her and I couldn't write about anything else. And then I started writing again. And most of my poems, especially then, were very confessional, meaning that they were very much about my own experiences and my own family. And I sort of thought of myself rather self-consciously as the kind of truth teller in my family who would tell things that other people did not kept hidden. So this is one of the first poems I wrote after that. It's a poem that presents this kind of problem because I refer to my own age in the poem, and for a while I was thinking if I read it out loud, should I sort of like upgrade my age? But no, so I'm much, much older than this now. So I finally solved the problem in this chapbook by dating the poem. So I'll read the date. If you want to, you can then calculate how old I am. And this is, it's so a number of the poems in this book are addressed to my sister. And this is a poem about her, or to her, and about how much she and I look like each other. And my thinking about, after she died, she left 2 children behind, how I imagined they might feel when they saw me looking like their mother. Revenant, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 2004. Sometimes you look at me in mirrors, face guarded, shoulders tensed, eyes kindling, with an expression I can't read. What is it that you need to tell me now? And what does my face say to those who loved you, loving me, as my face slowly ages into yours? Is it relief they feel, or just the same old sour grief, remembering again that it's not you who looks at them today? DJ, I am already 46. I will be older soon than you allowed yourself to ever be. My cheekbones sharpening beneath the skin, my eyes asking each mirror, whether this is the way you would have been. So, all the poems in this book are from my own experience, and they're all pretty grim and pretty sad, except for the last one, which I will not read. Usually I do read the last one because it's the happy poem. But instead I wanted to sort of like try to tell a different story a little bit, which has to do with what Eve said earlier about her own persona poems. And it's sort of like a story of me sort of like becoming somebody who can write persona poems. For a long time I thought, I just write about my own experience, and there are all these emotions I have to express. And I've sort of been moving in the other direction a little bit. So I have a very long manuscript that I'm still trying to find a shape to, about someone named Sweeney. So I'm named Sweeney. Sweeney is my last name. And there is a legendary Irish folk figure named Mad Sweeney. He was a 7th century warrior king who went mad in the middle of a battle and fled the battlefield and spent the rest of his life wandering through Ireland, eating watercress and drinking water and wearing no clothes and living in the trees, up in the trees, not below the trees, but in the trees, uttering poems aloud and believing he was a bird. And I first found out about him, I think, when I was in college. And I was writing poems then, and I immediately thought it was wonderful to have this ancestor, I decided he was my ancestor, who was a poet and thought he was a bird. So when I started to try to write poems that were not about me, I started writing poems about Sweeney. And I've been trying to figure out when my poems are about him and when they're not about him. So this poem it's not too long, but it is in 3 parts. And you'll definitely see my struggle to try to figure out how to write about him. So I feel like in this poem I'm starting to move away from writing about my own experience to writing about an imaginary character. It is about one moment in Sweeney's narrative. There's a narrative about Sweeney, like the story of King Arthur. So there's a sort of grand epic narrative. And at one point, he regains his wits, and his friends they ask an old woman, a hag, or a crone, to watch over him. And this story is about what happens. It's called Sweeney and the Hag. Once Sweeney could fly above the singing green thickets, dimpled streams, and high black crags of Ireland. He'd smooth down his cloak of feathers, shake back his tangled crest, brace one bare foot against the dirt, fling out both arms, and bound above the trees. Ireland below grew dark and small, that battlefield where long ago his wits were lost, no longer seen at all. Sweeney's friends brought him back to earth, and underneath a roof they set a crone with gray hair wound around her skull to watch, and warned her not to say a word. But the hag said, "Show us, Sweeney, how far you can fly." "I will not," said he. She said, "Then was it only thinking you could fly?" "I will not," said he. She said, "I'll wager I could jump 3 times as high as you, and me with my brittle bones." "I will not," said he. Her small eyes glittered. "Don't you remember, Sweeney, how it feels to let go of Earth's clutching hands and not know where or when or even if your feet might land?" Then Sweeney felt his toes stiffen, his thighs tighten, his thoughts turn dizzy, the wind already storming past his ears. Mad Sweeney sprang through the window, and the hag came after. He perched atop an ash tree, and she perched there too. He leapt as high as a high mountain, and still she came. With wings outspread, he soared from a ledge, and after him the hag fell like a stone to the dark sea. "I will," said he. So Sweeney made a song of how that crone had turned him mad again, yet he had made her drown. Still the hag came after. She coaxed my sisters to fly from bridges, cliffs, rooftops, a high barred window. One plunged down like a stone. The other tried and tried and tried until she learned to say, "I won't." The hag still came. She whispered to my lover to climb up higher, higher, higher in a tree until he almost fell. And she comes still. Sometimes I'd even heard her murmuring to me. But Sweeney, borne up by a song about the crone, soars unafraid above the small dark sea. And I'll read one more, which is short. And this is from sort of the next stage of my development that I started writing poems not about Sweeney, but about his wife, who I mostly imagined. And then I started writing poems about her children, which I completely imagined. So this is a poem about Madge Sweeney's child, his son, from the point of view of his wife. Twilight. Our son no longer looks for you. He looks for little birds who come when he casts breadcrumbs on the ground, and for the swan who sails away at evening, which is time for bed. Though he no longer looks for you, he knows your name, just as he knows such words as yesterday, tonight, next year, those empty ghosts of now. He knows that he is Sweeney's son. He knows that evening always comes because the swan, in dimming light, sails somewhere else that he can't see. No one still looks for you but me. Patty Youngblood, last but certainly not least.
Well, one of the great things about going last is you get to play off of everybody else. And I've changed my mind several times about which ones I'm going to read. But I think I'm going to start with a persona poem because others of you have. And this poem is written in my mother's voice. And she grew up in the West Virginia coal towns during the time of the Union Wars. And she got out of there as soon as she can, which was about age 18, because she despised it. And this is about an incident between us when I was in college. And she said, "I hated that backwoods music you brought back from college. All folk culture and authenticity. It reeked of dirt and ignorance to me, like the coal towns where your grandfather was the company man, and your aunts and I weren't allowed to play with the other kids. We'd hear it coming from unpainted shanties and patched revival tents. The players usually from so far back in the hollers they thought coal was good money until they got behind at the company store and never caught up again. We'd see their kids still barefoot in late October, picking coal along the tracks. The worse the town, the more likely my father was all it had of keeping order or setting broken bones. Sunday mornings, he'd go out to see who'd been dragged onto our porch after they'd drunk up their pay and beat each other senseless the night before. Union wars and clan feuds everywhere, feeding off old grudges, and that godforsaken music never far away. Well, you can call it music, but it still sounds like misery to me. Like men gone blind from bad still liquor, or lank-haired women ground down young, their laundry gray before it even came off the line. This is a pretty recent poem. I haven't had time to decide I hate it and completely rewrite it, so you're getting it pretty fresh. And it's called The Ice Storm. 2 weeks after Christmas, a snow and sleet storm moves in fast. Cars already creeping on slick glaze. On the steep side street outside my window are 2 white swans, seated Buddhas in the middle of the road, only slightly less unlikely than penguins. "Oh my God," I say stupidly, "it's a swan! Oh my God, there's another one. Their feet are black." They sit down, get up, sit back down. I wonder if they're looking for some warmth. The swans are white, the snow is white, and I'm a wreck, having seen too many drivers turn up this street too fast, trying for momentum and traction to get them up the unplowed hill. Sometimes they fail. Sometimes there are consequences. The male swan finally muscles a power flight straight across the main drag, stands sentry, blocks a driveway. He honks at his companion, wanders in circles back across the street where she isn't moving. Neither are all the commuters trying to get home in one piece without maiming them. A young man leaves his car, stomps his feet, makes a lot of noise and waves his arms. It works. The swans, side by side now, unfurl their long, amazing necks in unison, aim themselves at what's left of northwest light, and like arrows in a forest, simply disappear. But moving on to spring, which is a lot more fun, although I have to say the swans were an amazing experience. And by the way, they're the swans that you talked about, Carolyn, in your and Dan and Ann's backyard. This poem is called First Green. Inside the barn, cave-dark timbers still exhale winter cold. An old gas pump stands guard against rambunctious spring. But someone has pulled the wide doors open, and outside a dozen new shades of green jostle for attention. Adolescents at the fair, beautiful rowdies refusing to be ignored. Such eager play and foreplay, the season's short fuse already lit and burning. You could stand here forever, turning happily to warm stone, but you will not. While you are still bewitched and staring, the slow fullness of summer begins to stir, indolent, fertile, having her opulent way. And another summer poem, well, not summer actually, but this is the journey that I used to take from Worcester to visit my family in upstate New York. And to get there, I would take Route 84, which is a straight line almost from Schenectady, which is a great word to say, to my hometown. And it's a
And there's one stretch of it that has beautiful, wonderful mountainous views. And I call it, because I don't know its name, Cobleskill Mountain. Always a battle for the beautiful mountain. The foothills where you hover first, then glide down and down to the Shenango-Susquehanna merge. Always wondering, the bright encounter this time, or clouds that obscure? Long shadow maps, or blankets laid on the hills? Rain, or snow, or ice? After long descent, the river's first curvings, narrow ways through wide meadows, tracking our double helix journey home. Is this really the river's slow gather, or me having a thought called time, naming it cloud, river, bend? What have I got?
Why don't you do one more?
One more? Okay.
But not too long.
But not too long. I'm looking for the one that I was saving for last, here. Very dear friend of mine passed away this winter. But this is a poem that I wrote about her several years ago because it was something she told me about her own mother, and it applied, in my thinking, very much to her as she got older. And I think most of you who love words will probably relate to this. It's called Saving Words, and it's for Nancy Wilson. My friend's mother tacked lists of words to the kitchen wall so she wouldn't forget them. She was a haberdasher's widow, using the ends of old cash register rolls. A master gardener, husbanding a world she didn't want to lose. I imagine her struck by amaryllis or serpentine, her rough hand reaching for a pencil stub to fix it in time. Did she write chrysanthemum, obsidian, hollandaise, or promontory and humidor? Try harder to anchor the lovely or the daily, shovel, shoelace, flue. Consider the self-sufficiency, obdurate, estimable, of provisioning against the coming siege. Her dark age making its first inky inroads. Early losses already noted and accounted for. And one more teeny one, 4 lines.
Okay.
It's called Fire. How did I forget the fire of orange gold trees along a drenched October highway? And thank you.
All right.
We have books over there, and we're here.
Thank you everyone so much for reading.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.